Hey, this is Chris, and we're talking about how art history has introduced the art world different aspects or tools for artists to use. It's hard to leave the early Renaissance without talking about Botticelli. So Botticelli, 1450s, 1510, those aren't exact numbers, but it's close enough. And what he's going to introduce the world to, because of its egg tempera, there's no losing and finding an edge, which you're going to see with Leonardo da Vinci shortly. But what there is an elegance in line weight. And what the elegance in line weight will do, it will open up the world, the art world, to Van Gogh and how to express yourself with different kinds of textures and marks. So let's start with Botticelli's Birth of Venus and Primavera. And it's really the Primavera that I absolutely love. So I'm going to start with pencil. So what's the difference between pencil and graphite? Well, pencil is graphite. So what's the difference between graphite and charcoal and any other medium? Graphite for me is one of the softer marks that you can make, very similar to silver point, which would even be softer. So let me start with the Primavera and showing the beautiful gracefulness of the graces. He's going to have these soft lines. I'm going to take a 6H pencil and I'm going to use the point and not the side. And I use the point of the pencil and I'll make these very light. And it's almost as if it's going to caress its way around the painting. And you have these light lines and everything's just soft and you barely see them. So when you have a light line like this, it makes the dark line on purpose. If every line is sharp, if every line is hard, I can't tell the difference between was that on purpose or not. So then if I go to an F pencil, which is a little softer, there's a little more strength. So now I'm putting it on her shoulder. And please don't look at the drawing because I'm not, so you shouldn't. And there's different parts of it. But now I had these super light lines that you can barely see at all. Now I'm a little darker. But notice every time I make a mark, I sort of push down a little harder and then I touch lighter as it pulls away. Do you know I paint that way? If I have red or yellow on my brush and I hit the canvas, so just say the whole painting's yellow and red's on my brush, as soon as I hit with red, it's going to look red. As I touch lighter, the red's going to blend to the yellow and make orange, and then it's become a yellowy color. So each way I make a mark, if a mark is going up, I pull up in that direction. I'm psychologically becoming Van Gogh, even though I'm Botticelli in the late 15th century. So these caressing lines that a pencil will make are absolutely beautiful. Now a 3B pencil will go stronger. So if you have this stronger mark, and then you have these other marks that are lighter and softer, then you start to have this intertwining of mark. Ooh, that's an ugly mark. Even this intertwining marks, but they must change their breadth. Try not to have them the same darkness. Push a little harder, then touch a little lighter. One of the secrets to painting is a depth that you can create by pressing harder. Okay, so this is about as far as graphite's going to take me. So let me go to the next thing, and that's vine charcoal. Vine charcoal is not as dark as willow charcoal. It comes from burning a vine tree, hence the word vine charcoal. And a willow tree is burning a willow tree. So don't get too hung up with all the different charcoals and the expensive charcoals when charcoal's just charcoal and it's a burnt tree. So my favorite for vine is Winsor Newton's vine charcoal. I like the hardness. It keeps it from being too, I'm having trouble opening the package. Come on. There we go. Help me. There we go. So again, keeping with the mood of the feeling, maybe this part of the girl's dress, as I pull, it's a little stronger than graphite. So, you know, maybe this leg here is going this way, and what Vine does, it lets me make those lighter marks that you see almost in graphite, but it's a little stronger. Therefore, it's making a little more contrast, and it wants to pull out and come forward. If I was blocking in areas of the background, it would let me now. You're not supposed to use your hand because there's oils in your hand, and I like to use a stump or cotton balls wrapped in a nylon material, so don't look. But that's a quick, easy way to get a soft value that's not too dark, and that's using Vine charcoal. So my softest line was a 6H pencil, then it went to an F, and then a 3B pencil, and now I'm in Vine. And I'm finished with the Vine. And the next softest thing would actually, and I skipped a step and I shouldn't have, but that was take powdered graphite and mix it. And I like these little Twizzlers. This is a big one for the studio. I have smaller ones I travel with. This is a Twizzler TWISTERZ. This is 3.9 ounces. I don't go any larger than this. I like it because the lid locks. So I go a little smaller quite often. I think it's 1.9. I dip it into this, and then I start to shade. And the charcoal's a little more aggressive because it seems to be more of a willow charcoal. And I can go over some of these lines. And I can draw with those lines also. And the whole point of what I'm doing now is showing you what Botticelli introduced to the art world. And that is a variation of marks and textures. So here we go again. So now I have Willow charcoal. And I do have a favorite brand. And is this Willow charcoal. And I think the name of the company is DeLuna or something. Luna or something. You'll have to find it. I'll find it for you. So as I start to pull, now we're going to get into more powerful marks. You know, this is where you start to say, here's where I want you to look. And maybe I'll soften the top part so it's not all the same. And then you could say, well, some of these areas, and now there's a power to it. And a strength, and I'll soften it as it goes away. So it's only strong in a couple places, and you're just kind of varying your marks. Another thing that you can do is make a point with your charcoal, so you can draw very lightly with the point. And then as you go diagonally with the brush, and you start to use the side of the brush, and now all of a sudden you have a thicker mark. And you have a breadth to your mark. The next thing I like to do is take an eraser, like a kneaded eraser, and I'll actually make a point with it. And I can draw over the drawing with the eraser and actually make marks with the eraser. And this is why I like the Strathmore 300 series sketch paper, because it allows me to experiment and still get white. So I can actually use the point and then go fatter and then thin again. And I just lifting the eraser up and building the eraser. So what we're getting from Botticelli's Primavera is a beautiful variation of line weight. And it's just beautiful. Well, eventually you can use litho crayon or oil pastels or compressed charcoal. In fact, I think I have some compressed charcoal pencils. So compressed charcoal pencils are really detail things. I'm not a big fan of using them. They are for the eyelashes, a little hint of the pupil. They're much darker than everything else, typically. Maybe not always, depending on the hardness, but I typically only buy a 4H. I don't know why I have an extra hard in my hand. It's just something I don't use. You can't really erase a charcoal pencil. Well, I'm going to make mistakes all day long. So charcoal pencils and they're not getting along. So I don't really do what I'm about to show you, but I need you to see what it'll do and if the mark's any different. So here's a charcoal pencil. I have a line, a 6H pencil. I have an F pencil. I have vine charcoal. I have willow charcoal. I have erasing over the vine. I now have the compressed charcoal over the erasing, and it's giving me a mark very similar to a graphite pencil, but it doesn't have the breadth to it. I feel like I'm carving into the paper, and therefore I don't know if I like it. It's like a razor edge and it has no beauty to it. Now the darker charcoal, and this is a medium, it's not even a dark, and it's just giving me a texture that I don't find that flows and is beautiful, and therefore I'm just not a fan, because you see, that texture comes forward and attracts attention. So I have to be very careful. Is that the kind of texture I want? And I can't even smear it with my finger to soften the edge. I'm just not a fan of charcoal pencils. But again, I own a 4B and I do the eyelashes and little details with it. But keep in mind, you're not erasing with this. Lastly, the beast of beasts would be some kind of litho crayon, and I think this is just an inexpensive oil pastel. Now, oil pastel is nothing more than oil paint with wax in it. And the more filler and wax decides on the level of the grade of how inexpensive it is. But look at the mark it's going to make. So it's not going to go with charcoal. So I don't like to always mix mediums. I mix graphite and charcoal all day long, but I have trouble mixing oil pastel. And again, because you've got this bumpy texture coming through, and it's not going to blend with other things. You might do better off with maybe just a black pastel as opposed to an oil pastel. So be careful with your mixes. I want to end it here. Van Gogh's idea of showing brushstrokes, Van Gogh's idea of showing you the emotional effect of a painting from his brushstrokes, we owe it to Botticelli's Primavera and the beautiful variation of line that comes from that.